Greetings, greetings. This evening I would like to record a short, somewhat promotional video for Windblue Guilders. This is a project I've been working on for a little over a month now. Some of you have probably seen announcements, posts, and things like that. But I've been meaning to record a video going over some of the broad strokes, what it is, who might be interested in this kind of game, the sort of genre and play style that it facilitates. So what I have here is actually the preview PDF, which will be available on Soyaku's booth page. It's still under construction at the time that the video is being recorded, but the booth page will be where you can purchase the complete digital PDF. It comes with the Japanese version as well if you'd like to check that out. There will be some English added to the product description. That's just in the same vein as the Japanese there, but not all the Japanese will be put in because the CC Folia package, for example, I didn't mess with. So there's no point in putting that in English. But Windblue Guilders, as you can see the cover here, High-Seas Fantasy TRPG. Now personally, I've never been a big fan of the ocean, much less naval maritime things, which might sound strange to say, but I'm going to qualify that. From my friend group, we've always we've played a lot of Pathfinder. We've wanted to incorporate ocean travel, ocean battles, things like that. But in a game like Pathfinder 1st edition and 3rd edition D&D, the rules kind of get in the way. You know, there was no strong rules given by the designers. And a lot of the homebrew rules that we picked up rather than making stuff ourselves at the time went a little too far. It became almost a whole different game all on its own. They were always so difficult to understand, difficult to remember all the modifiers, and we just ended up hand-waving a lot of the naval stuff because it kind of got in the way of the game that we were all kind of sitting down to play, which was just plain old Pathfinder, plain old 3rd edition. So naval systems have always been something that I've been interested in, but because of those experiences, it's kind of not really, you know, if I saw like, oh, it's a game about sailing, I'd think about lots of checks and lots of sea terms like knots and clicks and all these things that I don't personally know a whole lot about. So earlier this year, I look on Booth, other websites like, Bookwalker DL site for indie TTRPGs, and Windblue Guilders came up. It's actually Wizards of Underash that I saw first from Soyaku, but looking through some of his other games, Windblue Guilders stuck out for the very striking cover art, and it had such like a fun tropical kind of feeling to it. It's very inviting. So this was the first of his works that I decided to buy. And that was just back in August, just not too long ago, but I had seen it come up even earlier in the year before I pulled the trigger on buying it. Looked at the product page, that ocean travel type of system. What am I getting myself into here? When am I going to make time to read it? Because, even when I bought this book, I bought many at the same time. So, what is Windblue Guilders? You can see High-Seas Fantasy TRPG. You can see some fantasy races. Zoom in a little bit. We've got a cat. We've got an elf, although in the setting they are called Lunarians, or people of the moon. And she actually has an Arcanite crystal on her forehead there. We'll see that a bit blown up later. And this girl here is actually one of the Finn folk. She is basically a mermaid. The mermen as a creature are actually like corrupted, somewhat mutated Finn folk. So the mermen are kind of like the gillmen or the fishmen that are the corrupted side. So they're maybe a little more mindless. They're aggressive. They'll attack sailors and other people. So it's, you know, definitely fantasy TRPG. It's got cool races, but I'd like to scroll through the preview PDF here, and the full PDF, when it's available, it's going to have, which will hopefully be this week, maybe even tomorrow at the time of recording. We're still working on the release schedule. But over here on the left, we have the bookmarks. So the English version of the PDF is fully bookmarked, and it is also hyperlinked wherever you see page references. Now for the preview PDF, I took the hyperlinks out, because if you clicked on any of these page references, I don't know what would happen. It would probably explode, because those pages are not in this document. So I'd kind of like to scroll past some of these things that you'll be able to go download and read it if you're interested in the lore, which is very rich. I've been reading through a lot of indie TRPGs lately that omit sort of any setting at all, or have very bare bones setting, and Altura, which is the archipelago that this game takes place in, is just fantastic. We will see the sea chart later, and you can see how big it is and some of the different things that are depicted on the sea chart. So the overview, you know, what's a TRPG? What do you need to play? This is meant to be, it's not a rules light game, but you can play very rapid types of sessions, depending on the table's goal. What kind of game is this? So the players are Laris Wanderers. Those are the PCs, what they're referred to. In other games, you know, you'd have a hero or a vagabond or whatever. In this game, all of the players are pretty much, as a default, Laris, which is maybe not exactly, but it's the Latin family name or genus name for seagulls. Fun fact. But the players are sailors, just so that everyone's on the same page. There's no, you know, I'm actually a pirate. Well, you could be, but you talk with the table. The default is everyone is a sailor. And it says that they're the jacks of all trades. That's because the Laris Wanderer, oh, that's what I was thinking of. Laris Wanderer is kind of the stand-in word for adventurer. So adventurers are jacks of all trades. You have many types of adventurers. Laris are the same way. There's many types of Laris. They can have their preferences. They can have their specialties, things that they're good at on the ship. Maybe they're particularly good at negotiating, or they know where to find all the best gossip and rumors, or they're just good in a scrap. But, and I'm not going to read through all of it word for word, because I'd like to leave something for someone who wants to know more. They can go over that in finer detail. I'd like to talk about everything about it, everything around it, to give a little more context, specifically through the preview. And I'll probably end up recording more videos about Windblue Guilders, because there's a lot that I want to talk about, including just a little bit of, it's not really behind the scenes, but some of what the process was that led up to before, during, and now after completing the PDF that was quite unique to Windblue compared to some of my other projects. So the main thing is, to reiterate, the PCs are sailors, adventurer sailors. And the Laris Wanderers title that was given to people who have that lifestyle actually originally was somewhat negative in connotation and was like, oh, you're rootless, you're a castaway, you're drifting around between islands, you don't have a place to call home, you're just doing weird stuff. You know, yeah, you're helping people, but, you know, you're not a friendly face in town. You're just some guy who rolled into port, right? Over time, the image of the Laris was enriched, I suppose. They different types of Laris made names for themselves. They set up guild halls and accept and disseminate requests from the people from all over the archipelago. And now whenever someone needs help and they don't know who to go to, well, they do now. It's the Laris. They can go to the Laris Guild and hopefully someone will pick up their request. And there's all kinds of things. There's pirate subjugation, there's giant monsters, sea monsters. There are, cargo transport. There's rescue missions, because there's all kinds of things out in the water that maybe aren't even hostile, right? Like you can have an ice floe or a terrible storm crash your ship upon the rocks, for example, and someone needs to be rescued. And conversely, those things can somewhat happen to the PC's own ships while they travel as well, depending on the region you're in and how unlucky you are, and how good you are behind the wheel of the helm. So the world overview, this is a great read, and covers some of the in-world terminologies. They're kind of game terms and world terms at the same time, and then these are like the tabletop RPG ones. This goes quickly over the races, and just a little bit of the, one column, half a page lore of the game. Definitely whets the appetite until you get into the world section much later in the book. Not much of that is included in the preview for obvious reasons, so please go buy Windblue Guilders if you'd like to see the world section. I think that it's really delightful. Obviously, you're going to get the whole complete book with all the rules and systems, the way that they all interconnect, and the history of Altura combined with the different islands, the specialties that some of them have. Like one of the islands is the only one that mints the coinage used. One of the islands is the only place that Arcanite is mined and is also the source of many other metals and gems. And not every island has like a super unique commodity like that or facility, but many of them do. And it's really just set up in a way that's so interesting. Like it's presented kind of as like common knowledge that even the players probably know in some cases. And also it just feels easy to read through it and go, oh wow, this would be a cool place to set an adventure. Or oh wow, the the mining island, which is Noble Island. You know, they need a shipment of gold taken to Claudia Island, where the mint is. Or pirates stole the gold that was heading to Claudia Island. And then you can pull up the sea chart and go, oh, this is Claudia Island. You know, maybe the pirates are still within the vicinity, or maybe we have to expand our search and like hop around to some other islands and gather some rumors. And the game is all very procedure heavy. This is somewhat, maybe not procedure heavy. Unlike many Japanese tabletop RPGs, which are very scene first, narrative first kind of approaches, where the game outside of combat progresses in beats, like story beats, like a movie. And that's kind of the default, what you can expect when you open up a book. You're probably going to see something like that. In Windblue Guilders, it's actually much more procedure based, which may be more familiar to Western readers if you're familiar with, I don't want to compare it to OSR, but you know, you have stretches of the day. Let me scroll on to the next page here just to show something else. You'll have stretches of the day. You can take multiple actions. You get a major action, you get sub-actions. There's a group action that everyone can collectively participate in, and that one action can be sailing, which is really interesting because normally you'd be like, oh, well, one person needs to sail and maybe other people need to man other stations. And the sailing as an action that takes discrete effort and time is actually pretty easy. And the focus is more on, you know, you roll for the weather. You roll for the wind direction. Is that helping you? Is it harming you? Is it still? And so, you know, or rather, is it a tailwind? Is it a storm and you're not really getting a strong benefit from your sails? Did you prepare extra sails so you go even faster when you have a tailwind? Or did you spend those equipment spots on your ship on other things like more cargo storage or a fishing net? Lots of interesting choices, and the specific action of sailing is simple. It can lead to danger or encounters or events, but the physical act of sailing as a baseline does not require checks, and it doesn't even really expend an action that you would otherwise have for that part of the day. And there's a lot of really elegant design elements like that really facilitate the more fly free type of like player agency, I suppose you could call it, where everyone's ready to shove off and hoist the sails, right? And nobody has to make a check to leave the port. In certain circumstances, there are helmsmanship checks that do need to be made, such as when the water has flotsam, debris, rocks, narrow gaps, bad storms, and things like turning the ship around in combat requires a good helmsman. So it's still an important factor, but the point I'm trying to stress is like, hey guys, you could have an adventure where if you're doing a campaign, a continuing game, you're at your home base or some other island, and you just want to role play traveling along the sea and just experiencing what comes from the random dice rolls. You can play that way. And I think that it provides a pretty compelling system to do that. So here we get into the character section. pretty simple. The steps to go through are quick. You basically, like, you have your race, you choose your name, and then you start picking your other details. So if we look here at what the human gets, initial skills wise, they get all these skills, these specific skills, any one technical skill, and then any 4 skills from other categories, including ranking up these other skills. And that's where the bulk of your customization comes in, besides also the weapons that you use. The stats here are pretty simple. So physique is not just strength, but does also represent stamina, agility, any kind of bodily control, including strength. Technique is more like dexterity, in that it involves your fine motor skills with your hands. So it is relevant for aiming, for using finesse weapons, but physique, notably, is the skill or the stat that you use for stealth, for example. Senses applies to a lot. It's how you can detect ambushes. It's the stat that governs your helmsmanship checks, cannoneering checks. Savvy is the intelligence type of stat for recalling knowledge. I believe it's also used specifically for firing arcano guns, which are like magic pistols. Then parlay is for negotiating, talking, diplomacy. And, you know, the races are pretty unique. On the surface, right? It's like, oh, Catman, lots of games have Catman, but the skills, which we'll get to in a minute, where they're kind of more expanded. There's the Fenfolk. You can see she's got the lower half of a fish, and they can't. They can transform, where they get 2 legs, but they lose all their other racial abilities while they're transformed. But they're fast in the water. They don't suffocate in the water, which is important, and many other benefits for them to be in the water. So here's the racial skills. So I'll just leave that there while I kind of hit a few high points. So like the humans are very adaptable. They advance very quickly. They don't suffer these types of ailments during a session. There's a funny Q&A entry where it says, oh, humans don't need to sleep because they never get sleepy. It's like, well, you know, the idea is that their adventurous spirit keeps them ready to go for the duration of a session or a quest. And it's not necessarily that humans don't need to sleep or don't need to eat. It's just that they can push on during the session without those things. It's a little funny, but you know, that's the reason. The cats are very interesting. They have a lot going on. They get a lot of like natural attacks and special improvements to that. Transmission allows them to telepathically communicate with other cats and even other like you can increase the skill rank, removes the race and word limit, distance limit removed. Seems like a very useful ability. They always know their direction because their eyes have little stars in them. Maybe I'll zoom in on that. And that is the star compass. The Lunarians are the only ones capable of using magic words with their own innate power, blessings given to them by one of the original creator goddesses in the setting. Other people can use magic, but they require the use of arcanite, which are like fossilized spirits, which still harbor memories from the age of the gods and the words of magic that they spoke that defines the natural order of the world. So the magic system is, well, I suppose the mechanical system as it's presented in the rule set is fairly straightforward. But the broader lore-based implications of it are pretty interesting, I think. The Finfolk song have kind of like a siren song. They can fascinate. They don't suffer the underwater penalty. They don't suffocate in the water. They get bonuses to their stats when they're in the water. And then finally they go even faster, which is like a speed of 3 is like pretty high. I think that's like there's some boats that, you know, are not even 3 speed. This next page is just a quick, simple. There's many. Each page in the skill section has a whole page dedicated to it for the connection skills, technical skills, magic skills, faith skills. So you can worship a particular god, and you have to you could install a shrine on your ship, or you would have to otherwise go visit a shrine at one of the various islands. And when you pray at it, if you're a worshiper, you get what's called an over bonus. Usually it's a once per time you have worshipped, let's say, special effect. There's very different ones. There's ones that are combat focused. There's ones that let you cast spells without spending the magic power cost. Quite varied. You can only worship one god, but they have like precepts, and they're just very interesting. Here we have the sea chart. I'm just going to zoom in on the picture, and we'll look at this for a little bit. There's not much to talk about because I haven't memorized all the names of them and what they all do. But there are 24 islands. These coordinates at the top and the bottom, you can actually, there's a randomizer that you can roll for to get specific coordinates. Basically, you can randomize coordinates, and then you could say, oh, that's where a scenario hook is, or maybe you'd base that on like, oh, that island is really close. These blue lines represent the different sea regions, and each one has its own quirks. Let's actually scroll down to that page. So here is included. This is the random coordinates, and then each sea has a little description, what can actually be caught there, the weather pattern. So some of these are, like if we look at Ice Flow Sea, the rainbow actually gives like a big benefit, but fog is mostly detrimental. Snow is not that bad, but mostly detrimental. Blizzards are very detrimental. So you can see that you'll never have a clear, bright, sunny day in the Ice Flow Sea. And I think that it's really interesting and bold that Soyaku, the author, decided to make these individual weather tables. Because in many times you'll have like one weather table, and people concoct lots of different weather tables. I've seen things that are just a d6. I've seen ones that are a 2d6 bell curve, but it's modified by what the weather currently is. So if it's raining, it kind of tends to stay raining until it clears up. You know, feel free to use your own, of course, but I really like that if you go to the ice flow sea, you're going to be in for mist, snow, and blizzards. So you can prepare accordingly. There's weather, like you can get mufflers, and you can get raincoats, and you can get torches, lots of different things to sort of prepare for these environments if you need to go there. And that's another part of the game, is outfitting your ship, outfitting your characters in a way that best lets you tackle the task at hand. I've seen it described by the author that the intention is that you can go travel to different islands, make these detours and side trips, and fish, visit an island and get some bananas, go get some cacao fee, as it's called. And you can either cook your own food, or at these other islands you can buy gourmet meals. You can also just buy the ingredients that you're missing to make your own meals, which have like a cute little homemade effect table that give special perks when you choose to cook. And like most of these rules are optional. You don't have to spend your money buying that stuff. You don't have to go, touring the islands and hitting all the gourmet eateries. You don't need to fish. You don't need to cook. But all these things are there should you want to do them, and they have their own little incentives to doing them. The reason why you would eat the gourmet meals is because they usually give you stat bonuses, which will tend to make most things easier, whether that be combat or just checks in general that you're rolling. So one of the main things for the game is to seek out those benefits and make use of them. Go out of your way to potentially get into trouble or operate within a time limit if you're under one, to grab all these advantages before you perhaps tackle the main threat, and things of that nature. So here's the character sheet. Nice and concise. The weapons do have like a damage array. So in this little spot here above the damage, you'd write what your roll is. So you might have 2d6 plus physique for most weapons. So if you have like a sword, so you roll 2d6, that's an average of 7. But if you recall up at the top, the cats have a physique of 6, which I believe is the max stat you can have. So basically they're very strong. And if you take the average of 7 on a 2d6, you add a 6 to that, their average becomes 13. So they're kind of rolling up in this range here whenever they deal damage with anything based on physique. Humans have very high technique, so they're good with daggers and things of that nature. Of course, you can use whatever you'd like. And there's even some unique weapons like the hammer, which rolls 3d6, and it's modified by your savvy. So it's 3d6 minus your savvy, which means the dumber you are, the better you can bring that hammer down on someone. And there's another unique weapon, the katana, but I'll leave that one a mystery. And some of the weapon designs, for example, and the gourmet and everything. Like there's such a interesting breadth of skills and weapons and little changes. Like you've got a good list of normal weapons, and then you have the hammer and the katana, which deviate from that rule set and are basically like the okay from the author to say, hey, look at this. You could make a funny weapon that has a unique dice roll, right? Like, I think it'd be really funny to see what someone comes up with for like a boomerang weapon. Or I was thinking about Hunter x Hunter the other day, and so it was like the combat yo-yo that Killua has. It'd be interesting just to see, like, you know, what kind of weird exotic weapons or even normal weapons would someone come up with, and would they give it a unique dice roll? Would there be some kind of mechanic or trick to it? The weapon bands here, like what you would do is, like, let's say 2 to 7 is 0 damage. You draw a line right here and then write 0. So it's you know, it's a little modular there. You have some interesting play. It can be, like, I guess one critique, so to speak, is that the enemy data, some of the enemies have weapons, and it says, like, you know, go to page such and such to see the weapons. It'd be nice to have the range like with the enemies, but pretty much all the weapons are on one page. So like if you're running the game, even in person, you could print that page out with all the weapons on it and be like, oh, okay, here's, you know, every weapon in the game with all their little ranges. Same with the ranged weapons, same with the cannons. They're kind of all on one page. Those are on separate pages, to be fair, but, you know. The ship sheet. So the ships are deceptively simple. They have just these stats here, and then you can have heavy equipment and light equipment. Heavy equipment is usually cannons, and light equipment is usually things like some extra armor plating, extra sails, maybe an anchor. You could go without an anchor, and then you basically can't stop anywhere that doesn't have a dock, or short of like running your ship aground. But the sailing speed, stability, maneuverability, size, these are all fairly straightforward. Turn is how many action tips it costs in combat to rotate the ship 90 degrees, and I believe you have to make a check for it. Of course, you can name your ship, the hull. There's different types of hulls. You can have like a simple little boat. There's yachts. There's schooners. You know, balsas is that one. Just going off of memory, so I'm not big on ships personally. And then, yeah, the base sheet. So there's even rules for making and customizing a home base. You can add and build facilities. It has costs. It has construction time. To an extent, between sessions, you can kind of, like, the time is elastic. So, like, you would just have to go with what the GM limits you. You know, if it says, oh, it takes a month to build a boat. But between sessions, you know, time is weird. So I want to build 5 boats. You know, maybe the GM puts a little restriction on that. Here's a sample battle map. The battle maps all kind of work the same. Here's like a C one, but you would use kind of the same idea for fighting. You could zoom it in and use the same idea for fighting on top of the deck of a ship. Fighting in a dungeon or ruins or on an island. You can't zoom in too much. Oh, I suppose you could, but the idea is that many characters can occupy one square. So a ship or large creature can occupy one square, but they can't share occupancy. So you can't have a kraken and a ship in the same square. They can be next to each other, and you go, oh yeah, that's a big guy. But for small creatures like the PCs and many enemies, they all occupy one square, because I believe one square is meant to be like 25 meters, which is 3/4 of a football field, or so. Football. But in the same regard, you could zoom in on the ship of the deck of a ship. I don't know why I keep saying it backwards like that, but if you were to envision like maybe this big rectangle here is the deck. Well, maybe you even do it smaller. You do a small rectangle, so you kind of have like these quadrants that a fight, like a skirmish, a melee, could be happening in, and then these ones are like ranged steps away from that. So the movement and positioning is quick and easy, while not being like completely abstract. Here's some tokens you can print or copy and use. For the preview PDF, I did crush the JPEGs a little bit more just so it stays under file size limits. If I was like, oh, hey, I want to see that preview PDF, you could just drop it to someone on Discord, for example. It should be under the 8 megabyte limit. Here's a rule summary. This is the game overview. You can enjoy slow daily lives or the adventures of sailors. It's all about making detours, sightseeing, worshipping, visiting facilities like a library or an observatory or a lighthouse, gourmet eateries, blacksmiths, black markets. Checks are simple. You've got your 5 stats. Here's some difficulty bands. So remember, 2d6 has an average of 7. So someone's worst stat, I think it's usually like a 2 or a 3. So in easy, they have like, kind of a 50-50 or maybe a 40-60 in their favor for easy checks. And then it ramps up in difficulty pretty quickly. Attack checks, underwater penalty. It's basically you don't want to be in the water. It's bad for you. There's some things that can like large creatures can capsize your ship. They can thrash you and knock you in the water. Simple overview of the game flow itself, and then this thing on the right is showing the 5 parts of the day, and then this little speech bubble is everything you could do in that part of the day. So each PC gets a part action, each PC gets a sub action, the whole party gets a group action, and then if there's any event or encounter or something that spontaneously happens, that's to the GM's discretion. And then you just keep on, you just go until you're done playing. You either complete the session goal, or if you're doing like a campaign where it's a little more sandboxy or free form, you just play until you feel like you've accomplished enough or you've played long enough, and then you can pick it up next time. This is what the character sheet looks like. I did make some modification to the how these are presented so that they're as easy to use as possible. You could print this out and use it right away. So for example, the sailor's garb gives a physique bonus. For here, that bonus is noted, but their base is 4 as a human. But down here in the weapon, the sword, which uses physique, I wrote out the final calculation there, just for ease of use, and you can see the damage bands. So 2d6 plus 6, like I said, that's an average of 13. Could be less, could be more. So you can kind of expect that this character is going to be doing 12 and 13 damage on most of their attacks. But if they roll Snake Eyes, well, that's a fumble, so something even worse would happen. But they could go as low as 10 without a fumble. He goes high as 15. So there's a little bit of variance in the damage. Here's the other character sheet. There's only 2, but I think with how simple it is to make characters, you know, I personally have not made much use of sample characters, but I understand their utility and why someone would want to use one. So I still put every bit of care in making these as user-friendly as possible. Like if you slid this in front of someone and said, hey, this is what we're doing tonight, there's not much question. You'd be like, okay, these are things I can do. These are numbers that I have. Oh, look, it's already calculated here for the spear. So you of the white hat has melee weapon proficiency, which gives +2. They have 6 physique with the sailor's garb, giving them a +10. So their average with the spear is 17. Couple that with other bonuses, and they're going to be rolling at their max damage all the time, and that's pretty good. Because like combat balance, character optimization, it's not a huge focus of this game, but it still exists. So you can chase the numbers, you can chase, build your number castle, get all your niche modifiers and benefits and stack them up so you have the best chances possible to accomplish your goals. That kind of play still exists. Me and my friends, we like to, pour over the data and optimize characters and things like that. So there's still a touch of that. And apparently, not that I've noticed that it was a problem per se, but apparently there's been some feedback that the health values are quite low and that characters can be knocked out very quickly, or die, as the case may be. And I think that's great. Why not? That suits the kind of play style that me and my players enjoy. We like that kind of quick resolution and tension, and let's maybe we'll consider doing parlay instead of fighting these pirates or thugs or whatever. So I think it works really well. And of course you can see some of the items and adventuring gear here. Potions, Arcanite fragment, which, what is that for? Because this cat learned they know a magic word. Magic word is horn, and they can create a deafening blast. It costs the 1 Arcanite fragment that they have, but they know a magic word and can use it. Sample ships, like I said here, the heavy equipment is usually cannons or sails. It can also be, you can see here, cargo hold. Armor plating is of course good. If you have too many of them, then your ship slows way down, so don't overdo it. Anchor lets you stop anywhere. Signal flags are fun. There's a list of words you can say, yes, no, coming alongside, SOS. And it's, there's some component of me that thinks maybe the enemy ship was copy pasted and added a few more things, but I think it's always really funny when a pirate ship has signal flags. They can say hey, friendly, and then draw you in, right? Lots of fun things like that. There's so many interesting little tidbits to the system. And this hasn't even, this is going to be a long video. There's so much more in the final PDF, and somehow it's all crammed into less than 90 pages. Here's the back cover. I really like this, this blue gradient and this very funky font that's used on the cover too. This is actually the same font used in the Japanese version. Yeah, this is it's not a rules light game, but it's a very light, concise, condensed system to run. supports versatile play, procedural play, sandbox play, but you can also align it to what would be more common for Japanese TRPGs, where it's very scenario based. You could do scene based jumps in the story, because almost all of the rules, like I said, are pretty modular. So you could pre-roll, like say like, okay, I want the players to do this and this and this at these scenes. We'll advance the time in these ways. Maybe you'll pre-roll or select like a weather event ahead of time and be like, hey, yeah, there's a bad storm here. Or, like I said, just use the tables as they are, roll the dice, let them fall where they may, and then the players have to make the best of it, which is the kind of fun that I really like, and that's why I opened Windblue Horizon. Like I said, I bought it back in August, and I didn't read it in August. I was looking at it in October, and I asked my friends, hey, out of these 2 or 3 systems, which ones do you think is the most interesting? There are a few indie Japanese TRPGs in there. Windblue is one of them. That was really the only one that, because I hadn't, these were books that I had bought, but I hadn't opened them to fully pitch the whole system to my players. I was just like, yeah, this one's kind of like a dungeon crawling item synthesis game, and this one is like a sailing game, and like, based on these like overviews, what do you want? And everyone only talked about Windblue. So I was like, okay, well, the answer's pretty clear. We're going to go with Windblue. And I just decided to sit down, work on it. I'll probably go over this in a future video instead, because we're coming up to like an hour now, right? And, after I had my rough draft and I was really liking what I saw and how it was shaping up, I was like, I'm just going to go drop it in So Yaku's lap, and we'll see where it goes from there. And now here we are. We're going to have the English version hosted on the Japanese site. There will be links. Sometimes I can't put links in the description because my account's too new still or whatever. So it may be in a pinned comment in the comment section, with the store page, which I'll say again at the time of recording, it's not yet been updated with this preview PDF for you to download yourself. It will be soon, and the game will also be releasing and available soon. The exact time hasn't been set, but we're kind of looking at tomorrow, which would be December 2nd, sometime in the morning. That's what I'm aiming for. If it ends up going sometime later this week, it is what it is. Because coordinating across the 14, 16 hour time difference from me and Soyaku in Japan requires a level of foresight that I'm not used to accommodating. So hopefully you'll check it out. Of course, any questions or comments, put them down in the comments. Let me know what you think. And I will have in one of the links, there's like a straw page. It has my Twitter account on the store page, which is the booth link. It has the author's Twitter account. You can check those out if you like. I don't really use Twitter that much. There's also a Discord server. It's for not just Windblue Guilders. It's just for mostly Japanese tabletop games in general, but kind of the ones that I translate and look at mostly. There's a channel for Windblue Guilders, so you can go there. You can ask questions in real time, basically, and get answers. Look for players. If you're a game master, I won't say look for GMs, because then everyone's looking for a GM, right? Take the dive, and game master yourself. It's a very simple game. I game master a lot, so I mean, I don't find game mastering to be too scary. Just have fun with it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this pretty comprehensive overview. And this is, like I said, this is just the sample preview. A lot of the things I talked about were things that, let me back it up. There's so many things I didn't cover that are in the full PDF. And I didn't even go in depth on everything that's in this preview. So yeah, I just hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know how you liked it, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks.